I'm really thrilled to introduce our first speaker today. I've been fortunate enough to be able to listen to Florence's presentations a couple of times, and I'm just so honored that she came to Indiana in the middle of a very busy travel schedule to be here at our meeting today. Florence is the Senior Vice President and Chief Innovation Officer for Internet 2. She serves as the primary focal point to activate the tremendous innovative capacity of the entire Internet 2 community. Through technology-driven initiatives across and beyond advanced networking and infrastructure, she broadens the scope and value of Internet 2 for its members by proactively and collaboratively working with the research and education community to develop and implement new leading-edge concepts. Florence has more than 33 years of leadership, or had more than 33 years of leadership positions at IBM, including the Director of Internet of Things, Business Development, Vice President and Director in Corporate Strategy, Vice President in the Systems and Technology Group, and Vice President and Acting Chief Technology Officer of the IBM Global Industrial Sector. She brings a unique integration of business and technical experience to senior strategic leadership, both for Internet 2 and the broader research and education community, in the areas of innovation, advanced technologies, and new services. And one of the exciting things that I read on her bio was that she spent a year as an executive on loan and IBM Vice President of Strategic Planning for the Society of Women Engineers, where she developed new programs to inspire girls and women to pursue careers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics worldwide. So it's with great honor that I welcome Florence today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you. Okay, can you hear me now? George, light me up. Okay, great. So it's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. This is how I have the most fun in my job, when I get to be with all the cool people in the Internet 2 community like you. So Dave, thank you very much. Marianne, all my friends and family who are here, and I'm kidding, and all of you who are part of my family too. Oh, good, here's my presentation and everything. So what we're gonna do today is talk, I'm too near something. Okay, I'll go over here. Okay. I'm short enough, you can see the charts, right? Okay. So we're going to talk about IT, the endless frontier today. How many of you were at the statewide IT conference that I did last October? Oh, good, then this won't be too much of a repeat, but I have new stuff in here. So I have to thank Brad Wheeler for giving me this name for this presentation, because it came from some work that we did at Internet 2 at the end of last year on looking at key information and communication technology trends through 2025 that are really important to the research and education community. And it really is an endless frontier. We were talking at lunch today about the needs for trust, identity, privacy, protection, safety, and security, and that's going to be an endless frontier and journey. There's information technology in everything. It could be embedded in your cat. How many people have chips in their animals? There we go. And I was actually on a Women Corporate Directors panel about the Internet of Things recently, and there was a woman named Maggie who used to run Frontier Communications. Maybe some of you have heard of her before. And she said that it was at least 40%. Well, a lot of clients were putting cameras in their homes, and it was an Internet of Things device that needed to be connected. More than 40% of them were to watch their pets. And the next highest one was to watch their husbands. She didn't say spouse. I thought it was a very interesting comment. But anyway, data is everywhere and things are everywhere. So let's take a little journey. This will be quick. But if you think about the information technology industry, so it started way back here with the census in the 1890s, and sometimes I carry my punch cards with me. Anybody still carry punch cards? They're just the right size. Okay. So, we had tabulating systems, and then we had programmable systems, and then cognitive systems, right? And I actually worked on the Watson strategy at IBM, their cognitive computer, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. Then we have computing from centralized, like remember when we had those dot matrix printers and we had the beehive? I think I'm older than a lot of people now. And you had to put like the output in there, and people came by and got, anybody live in that world? Yay, at least a couple. Raise your hand even if you didn't. Then we had distributed computers, right? And remember that? Oh my gosh, we're going to lose control. The tribbles, right? They're all over the place. What are we going to do? Now look at the Internet of Things. We thought we were out of control with distributed computing. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do now? And then personal, cloud, and now everywhere computing. And then we look at the data. And remember we used to talk about like the family jewels, you know, the student data and the financial data. That was the jewels. You had to keep it locked up behind something. Now the data is like all over the place, right? And the Internet of Things is really changing the game, which is one of the areas we focus on. So I was mentioning we did this study, and this was looking at 100, this is called secondary market research. We didn't do primary market research. We looked at over 100 different sources from McKinsey, Frost & Sullivan, you know, the White House, a bunch of different people, and say, what are the key trends that really affect research and education for a couple of reasons. One is if there's a lot of potential economic value, there'll be a lot of funding going into it. So that's good for research, right? Because you need to be funded. And then the other side of it being Internet 2 and the regional networks like us and the universities is that there's a lot of data that's part of this. And so we need to be able to help. The third piece on the education side is we develop the leaders of the future. We enable them, we nurture them, we provide environments where they have the technology and the capabilities and the support to be able to go where they need to go. So these were the top 10 things that we found. The top one was the Internet of Things. McKinsey's number is $11 trillion in economic value in 2025. Who knows what number John Chambers uses from Cisco? About 20 trillion. The way I look at it, it has a T, it's big. So I just go with 11 because it's actually demure. What an amazing demure number. Then the next one is healthcare and life sciences. And this is not the whole number, like including medical care, but this is the digitization and technology enablement of healthcare and life sciences. At Internet 2, we now know that a lot of the data growth over our network is in the genomics, healthcare, and life sciences space. We've been supporting the high energy physics community for a very long time. Now, what we see is all these devices, you know, genomic sequencers, all this data from NIH, and the journey to precision medicine. And also, you know, the cancer moonshot. Actually, I'm very grateful. I'm going to be at Vice President Biden and Dr. Jill Biden's Cancer Moonshot Summit on June 29th in DC to talk about how we can help them, you know, as they try to leverage this data transport and the trust and security issues and privacy issues. So it's really very exciting times for we technologists to help them. And this was very interesting. When I registered for the event, it asked me what degree I had. So they're really, what I'm really happy about is they're really starting to think about how the engineers and scientists can help them solve the problems of the future. I also went to a Global Connect event recently where they want to be able, the State Department wants to connect 1.5 billion more humans to the internet by 2020. And there they also asked, you know, they bragged about we had engineers, scientists, blinkety blanks in the room, like, yes, that's us, right? We really can help them. And we leverage all these different types of technologies, you know, the cloud, big data, cybersecurity. The third area you'll see on there is Smart Campus and Cities. And there's actually been a new initiative we've started. God, I think I have a lot of ions. I think that's why I have all this energy. I'm making things make noises. So with Smart Campus and Cities, we've actually begun a Smart Campus initiative with Internet 2 and 10 of our top universities, including Indiana University, that want to get interested in this space and do things. And there's a lot we can learn from each other. And it's leveraging all these technologies, some of them that we know very well. Now what I want to do is go into some of the details. Oh, I get in trouble over there. Okay, so for the Internet of Things. So if you look at IoT, what they say is that there are going to be billions and billions. There were stars, now there are billions and billions of things. You know, it's kind of complicated. But as you look at all these things, there are many different use cases. There are smart homes, you know, where the Nest thermostat and knows when you're coming and going. When I was at IBM, one of the things we worked on was a smart grid deployment, and we worked with Whirlpool. And we worked with the Pacific Northwest National Lab up in the state of Washington, the Olympic Peninsula. And what we did is we sent pricing signals to homes that actually had devices on their dryers and then also in the home. And then the dryers could decide when to go on based on the pricing signals from the grid. Very interesting. And the humans can decide because they actually had a meter thing that they could look at. Now I went to the Consumer Electronics Show. Anyone ever go to that? it's like a madhouse, isn't it? It's like 250,000 of your best friends in Vegas. Oh my gosh. And so I was there a couple years ago, and they had the Nest thermostat, and they had the whirlpool that was connected. I'm like, oh wow, finally, like 10 years later, right? It comes to fruition. So I said, tell me how this works, to their booth babe, if you'll excuse the expression. That's what they call them. A problem from, anyway, we have a problem, Houston. So I said, how does this work? And she said, oh, well, the Nest thermostat knows if you're home or not. I said, how does it know? And she said, if your smartphone is at home. I said, what if I forgot it? And she just looked at me. I said, okay, forget it. So now tell me how else this works. Well, it knows if you're home or not. Okay. And then if you're not home and the dryer's about to go off, it puts out on wrinkle release. I said, okay, I guess that could be helpful, unless like I'm on vacation for 2 weeks, right? That could be a problem, then the whole thing's gonna burn out. So there's really a lot to think about with these things. But there is a lot of aspirational value in the Internet of Things. It could be in connected healthcare, which we're gonna talk about more, or retail environments. Has anyone been beaconed? Like when you go into a store, it knows you're there, and then it gives you a coupon automatically? Interesting, a little creepy, right? So there are interesting things and creepy things. Actually, I met some of the Rockettes, believe it or not, last year. I don't remember how this happened. But anyone go and buy tickets at Radio City, like, you know, on the site, if you go to New York anyway. They have this thing where if you go to their site, they actually find you and send you an email saying, dear Florence, we'd love to see you there, like with a picture of, like this big picture of 3 Rockettes. I'm like, oh my God, that's creepy. So part of the challenge here is what's going on with privacy, what's going on with security and identity, and those are some of the things that we want to help tackle. Now with all these things, there's a whole boatload of data. And the cool thing, I think, is that they're starting to talk about Brontobytes now. And so, you know, we talk about kilobytes, megabytes, you know, blah, blah, blah. Then you have zettabytes, yada, yada, yada bytes for people who like Jerry Seinfeld. And then Brontobytes. So it will be cool to be a dinosaur again, which I'm really happy about. Then when you look at the data that is being created now, remember I talked about those family jewels. That would be this enterprise data at the bottom here. But a lot of the data now is coming from social media and sensors, lots and lots of data. So there are a lot of challenges with that. There's a lot of uncertain data. There's opinions in there. It's not just the facts, ma'am. So there's a lot to do with all this data. But one of the things that concerns me the most, very honestly, is the whole trust, identity, privacy, protection, safety, and security issues. There are vehicles that can be hacked. There are health devices that could be hacked. There was a gentleman who hacked his own insulin pump at one of the Black Hat conferences just to show it could be done. Very scary. And what we're doing is starting to work with the FDA and others, and there's an IEEE Connected Health Conference at the end of this month too, just at the same time as the Moonshot meeting, and we're talking about how can you enable better trust, security, and privacy in connected devices. But what I want to do is show a different video than I showed at the IU conference, just so you have something else to watch. And we're going to look at what actually can happen with your car if it gets hacked. So if we could roll the Jeep video, please.
It's not fun to have your 2-ton SUV's brakes hacked just as you're parking in front of a ditch.
Okay, hold on tight. Hold on. Oh,
That's what I've learned from Charlie Miller and Chris Valasek, a pair of hackers who have spent the last year developing a piece of software that can wirelessly sabotage this 2014 Jeep Cherokee. It hasn't been altered in any way. There are no devices attached to it. But like many thousands of Jeeps around the world, it can be remotely hacked over the internet through a cellular connection to its entertainment system that would allow someone to take over its steering, its transmission, and even its brakes. To demonstrate that, I'm going to act as today's crash test dummy and drive it on the highway here in St. Louis, while Charlie and Chris hijack its digital systems from Charlie's house miles away. They wouldn't tell me what they had plans, but they assured me that it wouldn't be anything life-threatening.
remember, Andy, no matter what happens, don't panic.
It's not the first time I've driven a car while it's being attacked by these 2 hackers. But in 2013, they were in the back seat, and their laptops were wired into the vehicle through a port in its dashboard. Now they're sending the same sort of attacks remotely, and I have no idea what they might do.
He's going as fast as I've seen him, so.
So first we're going to turn the fan on him.
Yeah, let's turn the fan on, see if he even notices.
All right, something just turned on, all the fans and AC and stuff. I didn't do that. The trick started small. Oh my God. There's a picture of Charlie and Chris in tracksuits that just appeared on the dashboard. But as I drove down the interstate, things started getting unpleasant and very loud. Perfect. I can't turn it down.
This was such a fun video. Steve, I'll kick it off to George.
Okay, now the air conditioning is blasting, the music is blasting, and I can't see anything because of the windshield wiper fluid.
Okay, do it. Do it. Kill the engine.
So we're killing the engine right now.
It says park sense. Actually can't accelerate. I stomped on the gas, but the Jeep slowed to a crawl. It says 43 miles an hour, but I'm not going that fast. I turned on my hazard lights, but I was still stuck in the right lane with no shoulder to escape onto. Guys, I'm stuck on the highway.
What do you say?
I don't know, I think he's panicking. He's not gonna be able to hear us with that radio. It's so loud.
Guys, I need the accelerator to work again.
The accelerator will work.
It won't work.
You're doomed.
Seriously, it's dangerous. I need to move.
You gotta turn the car off.
Okay.
Now you should be good to go. Semi drove by.
All right, I'm gonna pull over because I have PTSD. Charlie and Chris have only tested the full range of their attacks on a Jeep Cherokee. But they say that hundreds of thousands of late model Chrysler vehicles may be vulnerable through a feature called UConnect, an internet-connected computer in the dashboard known as its head unit.
These cars, head units, expose a particular service that probably they didn't want to. It lets you do things like query it for information like the GPS or the VIN or all sorts of other things, but it also lets you just run commands.
So you have to first break into the car remotely over the cell network and then move laterally if you want to do things like send CAN messages. And those are the messages that we can use to control things like steering or the windshield wipers or braking.
They plan to release a portion of their exploit code at the annual Black Hat Hacker Conference next month. They've also alerted Chrysler, which is issuing a security patch. But they say a lot more needs to be done to protect a new generation of cars that are increasingly connected to the internet and potentially hackable. You guys basically brought this car to a standstill while I was driving on the highway, which I may never forgive you for. And that was just like an experiment. What do you think is the worst case scenario?
We wanted to point out, to show that this attack has serious consequences for this vehicle. And so we did, attack you. But we did it in as safe a way as we could, so we didn't want you to get hurt, obviously. That's why we're working, is to make sure that we figure out vulnerabilities, weaknesses, get them fixed.
We're only two guys with one car, right? So, we can't look at every car, and we want to release this information because more people like us need to be focused on this problem.
After their stunt on the highway, Chris and Charlie still wanted to show me a couple of other tricks. Below a certain speed, they can control the Jeep's steering as long as it's in reverse, pop its locks, mess with the speedometer, and, of course, disable the brakes. Okay, hold on tight. Hold on. Oh,
He's not getting out of that.
I think so.
We're going to be doing some pushing.
Yeah, I know what I'm saying. That's how you drive in the Midwest. New Yorkers don't know how to do that.
So, pretty eye-opening, huh? That can really happen, and that really did happen. So I showed this at the CNIT conference, which is the California Regional Network, a couple of months ago, and there were two guys in the audience like leaning forward like this on their knees. I'm thinking, gosh, what good listeners they are. So as I was leaving the meeting, they looked at me and I said, oh, you're such good listeners. They said, we have that car. And so then I said, download the patch, and then I saw them at another conference the next month. I said, how's the car? And he said, it's in my garage. I'm like, you can't live like that. All of this stuff is going to get connected, so you have to figure out how to deal with it. And that's one of the reasons that we've been looking at teaching people more about trust, identity, privacy, protection, safety, and security. Can you trust that it's not going to be hacked? How do you make it more secure? How do you make it more safe? And these are things that we think that makers need to do, as they make devices, as well as we as users, we need to make sure that we're protected. So now that I scared you, I'm going to show you actually more happy grams about this in the future. But there are a lot of hacking potential. So what I tell people is, as long as you realize everything is discoverable and everything is hackable, you're good. Get out of denial, and then you have to figure out what to do about it. So we talked a little bit about the Smart Campus and City Initiative, and the White House is trying to help. But as I said to the White House, their job is to go like this. You have to do this. This is good for you. You have to do this. They don't really give you money. But they announced this Metro Lab project. And there are a number of universities and cities around the country, I think there are about 30 of them now, that are actually 35 city-university partnerships. And the idea that they have is that the city and the university work together, and the university is like a test bed for some of these technologies, so you can try it out in a safe way, you know, and then deploy it at the city level. So we're working with a number of these universities, and some of our Smart Campus participants are actually involved in that as well. Then the good news about some of this is that the National Science Foundation has been thinking about a lot of this. And they actually hosted 3 workshops earlier this year called Looking Beyond the Internet. One was about SDN or SDX, software-defined things. Another one was about future wireless cities, which I participated in. And another one was applications and services in 2021. I guess that for some reason they picked that number, but it's, you know, not that far out, but far out enough. And so one of the things we talked about is what I perceive is that there are going to be these smart city mesh networks that come out. And what I imagine, and there are going to be privacy issues related to this and other things, and there are going to be some connected devices and some not connected, so it's going to be tricky, but is that, you know, when you go into the certain radius or diameter of a community or a campus or a city, it's going to like find you, zip, and it's going to know where you are and then try to help manage transportation, traffic, public safety. You know, they'll have, like in DC WASA, the Water and Sewer Authority, has chips on their water pipes, and they can tell if there's a leak, and then if you gave that to the public safety and transportation information, then you could divert traffic, you can tell people who work there, send them something on their cell phone, work from home today. You really could have a very connected environment. But one of the really cool things about this is that you can actually start thinking at the system level. And I'm really excited about the new Indiana University systems engineering department-ish type, not really school thing that you guys are doing. I forget what it's called. But it's about information systems engineering, I think it is. Excellent, okay. So that's what's really missing in a lot of technical programs is the system level. People are becoming very specialized. I'm really good at this. I'm really good at hardware. I'm really good at computer science. I'm really good at biomedical. Well, you know, you have to think about all this stuff together. And if you really start thinking about what you could do if a lot of these systems were integrated, what could happen? So we talked a little bit about the smart grid project that we did, where we were sending pricing signals to homes, and then devices could decide when to go on, and humans could decide when to use the energy when it was lower cost. Very interesting. There was another project that I was kind of involved in Stockholm, which was a smart transportation project, where they said, we want to improve the environment, reduce carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and some other noxious gas emissions in the city of Stockholm. And we wanted to improve transportation, they said. So we worked with them, and first they put in more mass transportation so that more people could get around at a lower cost and low energy way. Then they put a congestion pricing and tolling scheme, so they charged you more with your car, with your Easy Pass or whatever you have, to drive through certain areas of the city during certain times of the day. So you can actually change traffic patterns, and they take, you know, mass transportation. But what if you had a lot of this connected? So what if you actually used pricing signals to change traffic patterns? That's interesting. Not traffic signals to change traffic patterns? No, pricing signals. So let's think about this. So let's say that we changed things so that, you know, Dave, where you live, it's cheapest for you to plug in your hybrid electric vehicle between 6 and 7 in the morning. And Linda, let's say it's cheapest for you between 7 and 8 in the morning. And then let's say it's cheapest for you between 8 and 9 in the morning. And let's say we do the same thing at the university or where you work. Very interesting, but in a different way, maybe other times of the day. Can you actually change traffic patterns by using pricing signals for electric vehicles connected to the building, to the university, to the vehicle itself, and to the home? Very interesting. So what you want to do, and what we really want the students to do, is think at this system engineering level. How can we really change the game? Now, the first thing you think about is there's no way you'll do that. The transportation systems don't work with the car guys, and they don't work with these guys, but that's part of the opportunity we have to change things. In this sharing economy we have now, maybe they can share data and actually make things better. So one of the areas that we've been thinking about with the networks that we provide is how we can actually enable test beds for some of this new research, because all this data is going over networks somewhere, right? There's wireless, it could be cell, it could be Wi-Fi, but then there's going to be a lot of little data can become big data. And there are places like Arizona State University where they're talking about creating this data lake of all this data, and then what do they do with it? One of the opportunities is to leverage the networks as actually test beds for things like smart grid research and development. You know, there are a lot of concerns that as all this stuff gets connected and we have all these smart grids, it's all hackable, as we said, and it could really be very detrimental to our country and to specific communities as well. So there actually are universities that are doing this. We found out that North Carolina State University is already leveraging the Internet 2, AL2S, the Advanced Layer 2 service, to actually do smart grid deployments and of smart grid testing and R&D. And what they're looking for is other partners, like other universities that they can work with, so they have a wider area smart grid test bed, which is really cool. And that's something we can do together. You know, the regional networks in different places, working with Internet 2, working with the universities and the researchers. So if you all have any interest in that or know people that want to get plugged into NCSU, we're speaking to a couple of universities on their behalf already, but we'd be happy to connect with any of you to help make that happen. And so as you look at that, really any of us can do this. It connects the network with the high-performance computing, with the researchers and educators, and so we really want to focus more on that. One of the other things were, as I mentioned, was the Smart Campus and Smart Cities initiative. And so these are the beginning, you know, the first 10 universities and the CIO Advisory Council we've created. And when we created the CIO Advisory Council, we started out by calling them to ask them one-on-one and then say, so what would you want out of this? What would make this worth your time? You know, what do you want? And the thing actually that Brad said from IU was knowledgeable knowledge transfer. Not pie in the sky, this could happen, that could happen, but I've tried this. This works, this doesn't. And then we can share best practices and learnings and then try to make things even better. So at our kickoff meeting at the Global Summit in Chicago a couple weeks ago, we had Gordon Wishon, the CIO from Arizona State, present what he's been doing. And he's very busy. and it's great because when we all work together as technologists, we can share data all the way down to how do you deploy this. So he was talking about the stadium and the user experience, the fan experience. Then he had a picture like, you know, under the seat with the seat up. Okay, here's the box, and here's the router in the box, and here's this and that. And you can really look at how different things are being deployed. But then very interestingly, he said, now there's this 300-acre greenfield opportunity that the city wants me to help them with. Very interesting. And they want to deploy technology in new ways. What does that mean? It's like, it's a journey, we're just learning. And so this is an example of the opportunity of the universities working with the municipalities and the communities in the cities to make this happen. We also want to get involved with more of the vendors that are supporting universities and cities to get them to help us more. So that's one of the things we're looking out for as well, and we're always open to input on that. I don't usually have to go like this. I'm hoping I don't fall backwards while I do this, but that's okay. So I'm going to hold on, so don't make fun. So the Internet of Medical Things provides a very interesting opportunity and also risks. So I'm going to be showing a video in a couple of minutes about telemedicine. And when I was out at the CNIC conference in California, there was a gentleman who runs the telemedicine telehealth initiative for the state of California. And they were talking about the need for more broadband, you know, especially to some of the remote areas. And to be an unconnected area doesn't mean you have to be in a rural farming area. You can just be in the outskirts of East LA. You know, they're not connected. And there's so much opportunity to leverage broadband and Wi-Fi and connectivity, and we can help with all that, which is really cool. When it comes to the Internet of Medical Things, there are a couple of areas. One is you'll see some of the telemedicine being done, but how can the Internet of Medical Things, the devices you have on, how can they transmit data to a doctor? So he doesn't even have to be in the office. He can be in his pajamas, you know, looking at the data on his device, whatever his device is, and help you real time. But then also, when we think of this end-to-end trust and security idea in the Internet of Things, we looked at the car already, we're thinking as an example at the insulin pump level, right? So you have an insulin pump that can be hacked multiple ways. You have data at rest, you have data in motion as it's moving. You have doctors or healthcare providers that are actually looking at that insulin pump or infusion pump and maybe changing things that are going on. So think of all the challenges with that, okay? So the device can be hacked, like wirelessly, right? And a lot of these are Bluetooth connected now, right? A lot of these insulin pumps. How often do you check the identity of the doctor or the healthcare provider that's looking at this? Is it the doctor? Are you sure it's the doctor? How often do you check? Do you check once a month? Do you check every time? You check every 10 milliseconds? How often do you check this stuff? Is the doctor still certified? How do you know any of this? There's so much opportunity for bad things to happen, and what we want to do is help the deployment of this technology but protect people at the same time. So that's one of the reasons that I like to talk about this, because I want all the really smart people on the planet, like all of you, to think about it. So when you see a deployment or you see an application or you're working with a lab, like an IoT lab on campus, or they're creating like a smart home like they did at Duke University, are they thinking about these things? And how do we get them to do that? There are going to be vendors that have to get involved, but then there are also going to be, the kids that today are going to be the leaders of the future. So what I'd like to do now is show you a happygram, as I call it, about the leverage of broadband communications and technology. Not so much connected to the Internet of Medical Things yet, but for telemedicine. And this is from the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, UPMC.
It hit me so fast. I was applying my makeup, and my husband goes, "Oh my God, she's having a stroke." When I got to the emergency room, the doctor from UPMC was on the screen from Pittsburgh asking me questions. Try to move your fingers, try to touch your nose, lift your left leg. I could not do it.
In the midst of a stroke, every minute counts. With telemedicine, I can get to the emergency room 2 hours away faster than I can get to our own emergency room, because I don't have to wait for the elevators. We're able to get that expertise to where the patients are.
He made the decision to give me a shot. Within minutes, it was already working. Everything was coming back. It was divine intervention.
Every minute that we can shave off is a life changer.
All my life I've rescued, and UPMC rescued me. I didn't choose to have a stroke, but I will always choose UPMC.
And there's an opportunity to do this in a lot of different places. The veterans and the Navy and the Army and those guys have to do a lot of this real time in a tactical environment. But just think of all the farmland. And I was at UPMC about 10 years ago, and we were talking, well, maybe eight years ago, we were talking about smart universities and smart campuses and smart cities. They were saying that there's a lot of farmland around them, and they said the farmers don't have the time to drive like 8 hours to get to the hospital, or someone can take off to drive them there and back, and they really need this type of capability, and so you can see that they've deployed it in a very good way. And just think, though, if there was the Internet of Medical Things, and think if she had these devices connected to her and they could see exactly what was going on when she called 911, right? And then they could tap into that and see and help her even faster. Because as we know, every minute is precious and every second is precious in those environments. So there's so much positive opportunity with the Internet of Things and medical things and leverage of broadband in big ways. And so now we're going to talk about another happygram. You'll see on a number of these charts, it talks about how healthcare can leverage mobile technology to make the biggest impact. There are a number of reasons for that. When I first worked on the Watson strategy, we were looking at how we could deploy this, what I called Smarty Pants computer, this cognitive computer to actually help. And there's actually a lot of waste in healthcare. There are a lot of misdiagnoses. Sometimes they use the wrong things to try to fix that people. I mean, everybody is human. Even robots are human, so to speak. Now, nothing is going to be perfect. So what we try to do is leverage technology in good ways. And what we see is that there's a lot of opportunity to reduce the waste and improve the outcomes, leveraging technology in healthcare. So this is a little happygram that we're going to show now, and I'm going to talk you through this. So I'm going to try to go where it doesn't make big noises in your ear. I think this will work. So if we could show my favorite grandma video now. And this is from Kaiser Permanente. And so here's Grandma. She goes up to her mirror. Oh, she's from Harrisonburg, Pennsylvania. She's going to Oakland. So fun. Okay. Oh, here's her glucose meter. Okay. Oh, her mirror knows her glucose level. Gosh, I wonder what the privacy issues. Forget it, whatever. So then she goes to her kitchen. Okay. Her kitchen knows. Wasn't there something about a spamming refrigerator? But anyway, so let's just keep going. So then we go to her daughter. Okay, Grandma's coming. Let's see what's going on. Everyone's going out for a picnic. Heat wave alert. Oh, high asthma risk. I went through this as a mom. Okay, got the puffer. I'm good. But wouldn't it be good to know, so you know to bring the albuterol and something else? And so then the hospital, they're scanning the environment, very connected. This would be a fun job, I think, helping people and not having to see the blood. So they analyze the environment. Oh, heat wave alert. Oh, interesting. Oh, need an additional care team. Okay. Gosh, so we need people on call. Surprise! This is why people turn off their phone. Okay, surprise. Oh, hi, Grandma. Oh, hi. Oh, thank you for picking me up. Oh, of course. Oh, you shouldn't have. Oh, we're at the picnic. Fun day. Oh, this is cool. So Tyler has this thing. Analyzing Tyler. Biometrics. Mom gets an alert. Low asthma risk. That's cool. I would have liked that. Okay. Uh-oh. Oh, I don't know. I'm okay. Don't worry. I don't know. She doesn't look good. No, I'm just a little faint, but I'll be fine. Oh, son-in-law of the year. Got this. Mom takes out his device. Okay, accessing KP, Kaiser Permanente Mobile. Okay, does a little analysis. Okay, shortest amount of wait time and driving time. Go here. Pretty handy. Okay, bye, Grandma. Feel better. Okay. Okay, she's a Geisinger patient at Kaiser. Oh, all she has to do is put her fingerprint on the iPad. This is so easy, this health information exchange stuff. What's the big deal anyway? Okay, Geisinger and Kaiser. Okay, getting the records sent across, so easy. Here's the doctor, new patient. Okay, let's see. Hey, how you feeling? Oh, I'm okay. So cute, isn't she? So he looks. Okay, this is what we see, we think going on. Okay. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I probably should have had more to drink. Okay. Well, let's get a little IV. Oh, okay, IV pump, not a problem. So easy to find. Nobody can hide them. How handy, unless they learn how to take the chip off. Okay, I'll find that. These are the glasses I want for my birthday. How cool is that? Oh, hi, Grandma. Oh, it's so easy to send Grandma an email. I wonder how easy it is to get the data out of the system. But let's not worry about that. Okay, here we go. A little video conferencing with your primary care provider, the guy who usually sees you. Okay, here's what's going on. These are her usual levels. Okay, yep. You'll be fine. Oh, thank you. Okay. Oh, so happy. Okay, oh, we're social media experts too. Happy family. Now this is a fun job. You sit there, people like you, and you like them back. And you get paid for it. How fun is that? I want a job like that when I grow up. Aw, and here's Grandma. I'm glad you're okay. Me too. Aw, so cute. Connecting people to a healthy future. So I call this an aspirational healthcare view, and this is actually 5 years old. Kaiser Permanente has actually been very proactive in this whole area, and Phil Fasano, who used to be the CIO there, was really great. He's elsewhere now, but he did a lot of this great work. And so this is aspirational, but look at how cool it could be. But the little voiceover was, spamming refrigerator, what about this, what about that? So what we want is for the people that are creating these devices, creating the applications today and in the future, thinking about that, right? And doing something about it. So what we're starting to do is look at this whole trust, identity, privacy, protection, safety, and security. We call it TIPS, so anybody can remember TIPS. And so see how we can infuse that more into IoT curriculum. And we have a few universities working with us already. We have Virginia Tech, Penn, Princeton, Penn is University of Pennsylvania, Princeton, UMBC, Iowa wants to get involved, now Berkeley. And so we're starting to talk about between the business school, the law school, the computer science department, and the CISOs, it takes a village, it takes a system engineering perspective. What can we do to actually help in this area? So one of the other areas we talked about earlier is this whole genomics, healthcare, life sciences space. And as I mentioned, a lot of the growth in the Internet 2 network use is actually around this area. And what I perceive is as we go to this whole precision medicine, patient-centered care area where they're going to try to use genomic data, clinical research, basic research, clinical care, environmental data like Tyler, this is going on and this is what's happening. All of this data together, it's a whole boatload of data. And so what we're thinking about is how we can help. Now, there's going to be a real journey here, and we're already speaking with NIH and NCI and CBIT and a lot of people with N's, H's, and C's in their acronyms, about how we can help. And there's still a lot to be decided. There are some cloud pilots already going on. We've spoken with some of the people associated with those. And what we're thinking through is, are there special needs they have that the network can actually help with? Is there something about the levels of security, or should there be a special overlay network or something like that, which we've done for the Large Hadron Collider, the high energy physics community, which has really helped them work together? Are there things like that that we could do? Are there special privacy or security things? Are there segmentation things? Is there something we can do to help them? And part of it too is that what they have right now is like a boatload of data at NIH, petabytes of data. Then they have all these gene sequencers, and they have clinical research that could be happening anywhere on the planet, and sometimes people that actually are regulators that stop you from from using the data, or maybe even accessing it depending on your country. So how can we actually enable the confluence of this data toward precision medicine, toward the cancer moonshot? So what we're looking to do is get involved in these discussions so we can listen and think, how can we help? How can we help? Because there's so much opportunity to improve healthcare, improve quality of life, and actually extend life. So it includes many different types of images and many different types of data from a lot of different sources. So this is part of what we're looking to get more involved in. You're all very familiar with cloud computing. We all do it now. It's very cool. One of the things that we do in the collaborative innovation community that we have at Internet 2 is to actually look at some of the new things that may be coming out. So the other day we had a call on the Open Fog Consortium. Have any of you heard of Open Fog Consortium or fog computing? So the idea with the fog, okay, stick with me here. Think like you're a NOAA scientist. So there's the cloud, which is up in the sky. Then there's the fog, which is closer to the ground. And so the idea is that as you think of like vehicle-to-vehicle communication or maybe device communications, that it's more in the fog. I don't think being in a fog sounds great, but maybe being in the clouds doesn't sound good either, you know, when your mother said it to you, right? But fog computing is kind of is complementary to cloud computing, and they're thinking through how they can enable standards to support that type of computing. Then as we look at software-defined anything, they say that when you put it in software, you can save a bunch of money. And so there's a lot more thinking going on around this. People have been doing it for decades, very honestly. I remember when we took a lot of the networking capabilities, networking hardware, and put them into software, which was quite a long time ago. But we're also looking at what are some of the newer things. So in the community, one of the universities, I think it was North Dakota State University, brought together the idea of what's SDP. And I felt like an idiot because I didn't know, and I felt so bad because we do SDN at Internet 2. But the good news is a lot of people never heard of SDP. Who has never heard of SDP? You can close your eyes if you don't want anyone to see, right? So that was a joke. So SDP, these software-defined perimeters, is a brand new thought, but it's being brought forward by the Cloud Security Alliance, which has, you know, good bona fides. And so what we've done is we've started working with them to understand what it is. And then once again, we had a call so people could learn about it, and any of you can participate in that as well as Internet 2 members. Then there's 3D printing, and I just think there's going to be a boatload of data going around with 3D printing. Now people say, but 3D printers right now, you know, there isn't a lot of data. But then they say they're going to 3D print airplanes. You know how much stuff is in an airplane? I was an aerospace engineer. There's a lot of stuff. You know, it's not just the fuselage and not just the wing, it's all the stuff inside. So when we actually start sending these huge, I think they're going to be big data sets, you know, we're thinking about what does that mean and should we be paying more attention? Then I've talked a few times about this whole TIPS idea. So I really encourage you, as you deploy applications, you deploy devices, you're victims of devices being deployed on your campuses, that you really think of what you can do and how we can work as a community to increase the trust, the identity, the privacy, the protection, the safety, and security. This is something that we all have to do. And then cognitive computing. Now, some people will say, oh, that was called AI 30 years ago, and we never figured that out. Some people are banking their business on it, like IBM, and then some people are in the middle. So cognitive computing, just to share a little bit of cognitive computing, these systems are learning systems. Now, what some people think is that, well, they think on their own. Well, they're kind of like children. Like, you have to teach them. So when I met Watson, he was a toddler, pretty much. He hadn't won Jeopardy yet. Now he's more like a teenager. Anyone have teenagers? So they think they're really smart. And there's still more for Watson to learn. But he's doing really well. And so they're teaching him about healthcare, about cancer, about a lot of different things. But the idea behind cognitive computing is that it can enhance what we do. Does it think for us? Well, it depends on who the us is. You know, when you team it up with a doctor, it could be that Watson can actually look at a lot more data than a doctor just physically has time to do. You know, they're not going to have time to read every research report that comes out around the planet in India, Japan, China, and all these different languages, assess the data, and then use it for insight when they're trying to make a diagnosis. But something like a cognitive computer can actually help with that. When we were looking at this whole human-machine interface in cognitive computing, we actually brought Daniel Kahneman in. Does anyone ever hear of Daniel Kahneman? He's a Nobel laureate. He wrote this really cool book called Thinking Fast and Slow. It's really good. Anyway, what we started talking about is, so when the computers get really smart, who's thinking fast and who's thinking slow? Okay, very interesting. But if you're an aerospace engineer or you know one, and you think of like the stealth bomber, actually the plane's getting so much data that the humans actually can't really keep up with it, so actually the plane makes a lot of the decisions. That's like the way cognitive computing could go. But there are also regulatory issues. So as an example, if a cognitive computer like Watson was making life and death choices, it needs to be FDA certified, it has to pass the MCATs, it has to do a lot of different things that computers don't usually do, and it actually moves risk around. So you're going to see a lot of different implications, regulatory, business model, and technical models as these technologies come to be. So why do I talk about this stuff from Internet 2? What is that anyway? Oh, we have this network thing. Well, when I joined the firm about a year ago as the Chief Innovation Officer, I did a survey the second day in the job, St. Patrick's Day. So after people had their green beer, hopefully they came home and answered it. And we asked them, so what areas of open collaborative innovation do you want us to work on? So your universities, regionals, everybody, you know, got this email. About 8,800 humans in our database. And they came back and said, well, Internet of Things and distributed big data analytics and end-to-end trust or security are the areas we really care about. And I want to personally call out Steve Wallace and thank him for being in this from the beginning with us. I was talking to Brad Wheeler. He said, you see this stuff from Steve? I'm like, what stuff from Steve? And he was so nice. He said, your handlers probably saw it. I'm like, my handlers? I have like nobody, because it's like me and my assistant. But that's very nice that you think I have some. And so then I looked at Steve's information, and he really had a lot of great questions and thoughts about the Internet of Things. So he actually joined as one of the 3 co-chairs of the Internet of Things working group. So we took these 3 ideas, we brought it back to the community, and said, okay, this is what you said you care about. What we'd like to do is create some working groups. Let's see what you think you want to do in this area. We had 3 co-chairs for each one. And then now we actually have about 100 people in each of the working groups. And we had the community members bring forward, what do you want to do in this space? What do you want to learn? What do you want to deploy? And so the use cases that they brought forward evolved into these. And so very interestingly, very early on, the end-to-end trust and security co-chairs and the IoT, Internet of Things co-chairs, said, we need them. You know, we have to worry about end-to-end trust and security for IoT. So we started that whole initiative. What was really cool is that we found, we worked with the Internet Initiative at IEEE, and they actually funded this workshop that we had at the beginning of February on end-to-end trust and security for IoT, and we're going to keep working with them. We framed together with them and the National Science Foundation, working with Anita Nikolic in the cybersecurity area, this whole TIPS idea that we talked about, and we're furthering that deployment. And then software-defined perimeters and network segmentation came up. So once again, we had webinars. We found experts in these things from Cloud Security Alliance, from Cisco, and we share that information. It's all on the Chief Innovation Office Wiki. If any of you want to see it, it's all open, whether you're a member or not. And you just go to CINO Wiki Internet 2, and you can find all of it. On the Internet of Things, we had this vision of being able to enable collaborative innovation of Internet of Things application development across parts of university and across universities. And so we worked with IBM to leverage their IoT Blue Mix IoT Foundation. It's called Watson IoT now, I think. They've Watsoned a lot of things. And so it's a virtual environment that universities can use. I think you can use it like free for 6 months or something like that if you use it for academic purposes, where you can go in and there are these device recipes like for a Raspberry Pi or a BeagleBone or something, and you can put these things together and ding, you know, make applications. And they can actually enable a virtual environment between universities. Now we're taking that idea, actually thanks to Steve's help again, and seeing if we can make it into a physical sandbox, like maybe with some Raspberry Pis or Arduinos or Intel Edisons, where we can maybe ship it to a few schools and have them start deploying these IoT labs, which we think will be really valuable from a hands-on environment. And I talked to you about the other 2 areas there. In distributed big data analytics, we have a healthcare life sciences strategy effort going on that's involved with genomics and NIH and NCI and all these guys. And we've actually been trying to help in digital humanities, which kind of feels like boiling the ocean or trying to breathe all the air on the planet, because digital humanities is the deployment of technology to actually help with the humanities, which could be the arts, it could be music, it could be sociology, psychology, history, almost anything. But we are trying to figure out how we can help. So we're having our first digital humanities related event to dig more into what can we do to help them, probably at the University of Houston in July. That's our plan right now, working with the regional network there, LEARN, which is the Lone Star Education Research Network. And then I've told you most about the top of that too. So these 3 working groups are part of our collaborative innovation community, and you can see all the material on our website. So what does this mean? What do we do? Is this just interesting? Is it like reading People magazine and you put it down and forget about it, unless you like the pictures and you keep it? Well, there's a lot of opportunity here. So from the research perspective, we can enable the deployment of test beds to do the research around the networking of these devices, about what type of security issues are there. We can work with NREN's National Research and Education Networks around the world. Actually, I'm leaving tomorrow for Prague for the Torino Networking Conference, which is a lot of networks like iLight or Internet 2 from around the planet. And we can work together with them to try to move some of these things along. We can also help develop how we help in the healthcare life sciences frontier moving forward. How do we get involved and listen to see what their challenges are, and then help them leverage the technology, whether it's high-performance computing, the networking, or all of it working together, or the Internet of Medical Things. And we really can help educate the future leaders of this IoT-led economy, but we want to teach them about some of these TIPS issues we talked about, and help them address the challenges and opportunities of the future. There could be curricula. I think the information systems engineering, I always say it a little backwards because I'm dyslexic, is a great opportunity to actually do this, to really teach system level thinking and deploy it in the Internet of Things way. I think it would be really cool to differentiate and to lead in that whole environment, because people really aren't doing enough system level thinking, whether it's the system even in the device, like the hardware, firmware, software, service level, or it's the, the building systems working with the transportation systems, working with the grid systems. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. You can create IoT labs. There's one at the University of Wisconsin at Madison. They were talking about creating one at University of Iowa. I was just there. Hopkins has one. And help people to actually create applications, create use cases, but also bring the different parts of the university together for all the challenges. So you can have computer science, you can have electrical or mechanical engineering, you can also have the lawyers on the policy side, you can have the business from the business model perspective, the informatics for the data analytics. There's so many pieces you can bring together and actually teach them on campus about working at a system level and working in a cross-disciplinary way, because there are going to be many challenges and opportunities in this. So we were talking about, I want to live to be 100. I think Heather's thinking the same thing. Yep, we're in. And so we're going to have a long time to think about this and help with this. And so I'd like us all to get started as soon as we can, and probably a lot of you have. And then we like to try to help attract funding for, groups of universities or whomever it is, as we try to look for opportunities for us to all work together as a team. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. And I think I have time for questions. I have about 10 minutes, I think. And so I would love to hear your thoughts. You agree, you don't agree? It's interesting, it's not. Well, if it's not, maybe just tell me on the side. But, what are some of your questions or thoughts that you have about this? Anything we talked about, or anything else? I'm flexible. Yes, do we need a mic or no? Okay. Thank you.
Testing.
Yes,
okay.
I can hear you now.
When you say Watson, are you referring to Watson Analytics?
Yeah, so Watson is a term that IBM is using for the computer. It was initially the computer that won Jeopardy. Remember when Watson played Jeopardy and beat Ken Jennings? So it was a few years ago now. So that was Watson's coming out party as a cognitive computer, and thank God it won. For those of us that were at IBM at the time, it was really a tough time. We were like all praying for him, please win. And so now IBM has actually furthered the use of the Watson nomenclature as they bring analytics to more parts of the business. So you're right, it is Watson Analytics. It started as Watson, the computer that won Jeopardy. Now they have Watson IoT and how they're helping leverage analytics in the Internet of Things space. And they just did a big announcement with Cisco, I think, last week on that whole space, which is probably going to include fog computing. And then they also have Watson Healthcare. So they're looking at how they can deploy the cognitive computing technology in the healthcare environment, leveraging analytics. And the cognitive computing is really analytics. So it's a very good way to explain it, as you did, that it's really Watson Analytics, but they're deploying it in different ways. But that's what a lot of the future is data science and analytics. What do you do with the data? It's not that the data is there, so what? It's like blah, so it falls off, into the bit, we used to call it the bit bucket years ago. Where'd it go? I don't know, it's in a data lake. Well, now what do I do? Row, find some value in that data. So you're right, Watson Analytics is a good way to explain it. Are you working with Watson Analytics now?
I've just seen a lot of research recently in the last year on Gartner websites, just researching ways to give higher education some competitive advantage, and I'm seeing Watson Analytics pop up over and over as an example.
Yeah, that's a good example. So there are a lot of people talking about it, and cognitive computing is, projected, as we said at the beginning. Went from tabulating to programming to cognitive. What does that mean? How do we deploy it? And it really is analytics, the analysis of data to improve outcomes, to give you new insight. When we were first doing this, I said, maybe we should call this insight computing or wisdom computing. It gives you insight. They're like, nah, we're not ready for that. I'm like, I don't know, I think it's kind of cool. But we ended up with cognitive, which is fine.
Question. So in the early days of the internet, the university community had a lot of influence on how things sort of ended up and kicked that off. And lately we haven't seen that much influence from R&E. Is it because, well, the money's different than it was in the early 90s? In the early 90s. So what do we do? I mean, very interesting presentation, but as an R&E community, as a university, how do I influence the direction of any of these technologies in a way that directly advantages my university?
That's a really good question, Dave. So I think you have to be in it to win it. And what I've seen happen, very honestly, in education is that one thing is that sometimes they're just looking for industry money, like give me money, I'm going to do this and give me money, and then you're kind of tied to those vendors. That's usually how those deals work out. So you're not making this big influential play, like you're kind of at the mercy of who gave you the money. So that's one thing I see that I don't think is that great, honestly. They might feel like I got money, look at me. I'm like, yeah, but how are you changing the world, which you can do. I agree with you. So that's why I think the information systems engineering stuff that you guys are going to be doing at IU, I think could be so impactful. And it's not even rocket science, it's data science, and it's system engineering. It's people have what I call a heads down display. They look at their altimeter, they look at their technology. What you need is a heads up display. Look at how all this stuff plays together. I mean, think of a pilot. If all they do is look down and they look up and go, oh man, there's a mountain. I mean, that's a problem, right? Oh my gosh, there's a tornado. So you need a heads up display. And so I think that this program in particular, it has a really interesting opportunity to show some of that. And also we could work together to influence like the type of money NSF gives out. As we look at system engineering needs or cybersecurity at this TIPS level we've been talking about, trust, identity, privacy protection, safety, and security. And I've actually connected with NSF on that, and they said they're not seeing enough IoT security proposals. They're not. And they wish they were, right? And so what we can do is work together, or just do it yourselves, But if we work together, then we might have a bigger voice sometimes. To bring these proposals forward and engage with these grantors and other funding opportunities to actually increase the focus and the research on this. I think also if we start pulling together across the different disciplines like we were talking about, the computer science, the electrical engineering, and the law, and the business, it's almost like creating the VC environment in the university, right? Because they have to do that. That's why they have all those little smart people around the table that come from all those, they have a guy with money and somebody with a law degree and with this. Well, actually, they don't always worry about the lawyers. That's another problem. If there's IP, they do. And then the technologists. You can create an environment like that and build business models that they'll take it outside into the future. So I think part of the challenge we've had in education and academia is like we've seen some of those things happen and go, oh, poo-poo, oh, what's that going to be, Facebook? Oh gosh, I guess it was bigger than I thought, right? Or some of these other things that occurred over the years, Netflix or whatever it is. I think it's our opportunity not to poo-poo that stuff, but to actually enable it, and get others in the boat with you. Or just become what I call water torture techniques. You know, you all drip at the same time, drip, 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 and then, oh my gosh, it's a waterfall. A nice water torture technique, not the one where, you know, other people get hurt in different ways. Did that answer your question? Thank you very much. Any other questions? I think I have time for one more. I see a hand.
This is really unsexy, but like, who will convince the federal government that Social Security numbers and credit card numbers are not really private information anymore?
Well, that's an interesting question. I hadn't decided to take that one on. But anyone else have an answer? We accept questions and answers from the audience. Yes, Steve?
So I'll find the reference to it, but there is, I need a mic. Okay, I actually have a mic.
Oh yeah, I hear him, yeah.
They could turn it on.
You can turn my mic on. Did that work?
I think it is on, yeah.
Magic. There's an interesting paper out of Berkeley, and I'll put a link up somewhere on the iLight page so you can see it. And they go through a number of scenarios where they describe things in the future, not the distant future, 2020. And one of them is titled The New Normal. And the new normal is when all that information, you just figure it's available, and how that would affect policy and both federal and public approach. So I'll put that link up. It's pretty interesting, and it is you know, addresses those concerns in sort of a fictitious way.
Like, this is really cool stuff, but you know, we're still dealing with 20-year-old legacy paradigms, and like we'll be sued because we're not protecting private data that really isn't private.
Yeah,
You know.
well, not anymore it isn't, right? But that wasn't our idea. So you're absolutely right, and this is an interesting thing to look at regarding how business models change, or what open really means. So one of the things we've been talking about as an example in this end-to-end trust and security architecture for IoT is it should be an open architecture. What does that mean? Well, assume the bad guys are going to get it, because you know they are. So assume they have it. So just, you know, make it public. But it's the way you do it that makes it secure, whether it's, you know, security keys or key pairs or encryption capabilities or whatever it is. Those are the things that are secret and secure, you know, and so those are known. I mean, people know you do that. They know you can put a hardware root of trust in a device. You know, they know you can, you know, whatever with the firmware, and a lot of it is hackable, but that's why you need defense in depth. But if you think of open architecture and open data, you're talking about open data. I mean, it's out there, right? So now if you assume they have it, what do you do instead? Well, maybe, you know, I'll make this up, but maybe your insurance ID number is an RNG. An RNG, and it keeps changing. And then like your little authentication code on Facebook, you know, it says, go get your code, and then by the time I find it, put it in, it expired, I have to go back and get it. Drives me crazy. Anyone that happens to you? Drives me nuts. But you know, maybe there are different models we have to use for that, and that's a really good question. You should be teaching in one of these IoT labs, or you know, one of these open data science or informatics labs. You know, how do we change the model? And then you get them to get a fellow position or work for a senator in DC, you know, in DC, and then get them to do that. That's actually something else that I'm really glad in some of these government meetings now they're asking what degree you have, because I would go and speak to, you know, and ask to speak to a senator so they could do to one of their, you know, recent college graduates who's a director of science, and he has a political science degree. I'm like, seriously? You know, I want to talk to you about like end-to-end trust and security and cybersecurity and encryption, and they're like, what's that? Is that like eucalyptus? No, not exactly. You know, so we really need some of these people that can speak that way, helping to make decisions like this. So inspire people, or go get a fellowship yourself. You know, inspire people to be thinking this way. You know, well, I think it's my time. So my time's up. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a real joy.